America, the land of the free, but not for everyone. Why does it feel that way? Hello, thank you for joining the Cleveland Pulse podcast. I am excited to have a very special guest. You know, we often have conversations about things that are greatly impacting our community, and what better now than to have a conversation about immigration, ICE, and how things are impacting the community. I have our special guest, Azaadjeet Singh, our immigration attorney here in Cleveland. Azaadjeet, welcome to the Cleveland Pulse. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Azaadjeet, which means freedom, and my last name is Singh, which means lion. So I'm basically a freedom lion, and I'm an American Sikh, and I'm always mistaken to be a Muslim, but I'm not. We're two separate faiths. And as an American Sikh, if you go back, when we first started coming here into the United States of America, maybe about 200-300 years ago, we were classified as Caucasians. And then one day, 100 of us showed up in a ship in California. The media picked it up and it said, "Invasion by the turbans." And so here we have the U.S. Supreme Court. They retrospectively took back the word Caucasian and they downgraded us to brown Caucasians. So it looks like there's no change, but there was a change. If you come in as a Caucasian, you could buy land, you could start a business, and you could bring over your spouse and your family. But the moment they downgraded us to brown Caucasians, so we could not buy land, we could not start a business, and we couldn't bring over our spouses and our families. And then if you move forward, fast forward, I think the biggest change in Immigration and Nationality Act took place in 1965. They further downgraded us to Asian Americans. So I do not know, do I look like Jackie Chan to you?
No.
Okay. And then for my country of origin, I'm not even Asian American. I am a Pacific Islander. And which is good and which is bad. I think about 25 years ago, the first time I walked into the city of Cleveland, and as I was walking into the city hall, on the other end, I saw somebody who looked like me, had turban, had a beard, and he was an African-American gentleman. And as we crossed, he said, "Sat Sri Akal." That is a greeting, praise the God. And then we sat down, and I didn't know until then that you have African-American Sikhs. And then he told me he struggled that, because his father was Sikh and his mother was black. And when they downgraded it to brown Caucasian, so he couldn't bring, so he married one of his farm workers. And that's why if you look at the Mississippi, have you seen the movie Mississippi Masala? Old movie with Denzel Washington. So that is based on, Indians coming into the Mississippi Delta area. So that is the bedrock of the African American Sikhs. And then, and if you close the border, so we had, and Sikhs, I want to say that they're great farmers. They started the Green Revolution back in India. So when they were caught with this dilemma, when they couldn't bring over, so they married their Mexican farm workers. So now we have this subcultures of Mexican Sikhs and African American Sikhs. And then in the 70s, when I think America was going through the civil rights movement, there was a lot of strife and people were looking for peace of mind. That's when I think we have a lot of white Americans becoming Sikhs, and they are based in Albuquerque in New Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you spent your entire life here in your family.
Sorry?
You spent your entire life here.
Right.
Your family spent their entire lives here.
I'm a single parent, so I'm here just with my daughter, who's a psychiatrist. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my point in saying that is you belong.
I definitely think I belong. And if you have been to Arlington Cemetery, you will see Sikhs died fighting and buried there, and you'll see the Sikh insignia. And a lot of people do not realize that insignia means you'll see crosses, and then you'll have that David cross for Jewish people. But that insignia for Sikhs, it's very openly displayed. And we have fought in all the major wars in America and died for the country. And interestingly, for American Sikhs, our civil rights movement started immediately after the First World War. There was a Sikh called Bhagat Singh Thind, and they don't teach you this in constitutional law. So he served very nobly, gallantly, was honorably discharged after First World War, but they will not give him his citizenship. So he had to fight all the way to Supreme Court, and that's what the things I talked about earlier all came up.
And so, my point in saying this is that they belong. They too belong.
We do belong. Yeah,
they
we definitely belong.
Just as part of this country as any other fabric of this country.
Exactly.
And 100% to belong here. We
Right.
are all a part of the fabric that makes up this great country.
Right.
Yet and still, we live in a time where so many people who also belong here are fearing for their lives.
Right.
We are in a time where ICE is deporting people, whether they belong here or not. Taking them from the street and sending them to places where they don't necessarily belong. People are afraid.
Yes.
People don't know what to do.
Right.
And so I want to talk a little bit about the types of things that you see from your perspective, and then what can people do to combat what's happening.
So number one, if you remember, I think a few months ago, there was a Sikh grandma, and her whole family is American citizens. But for some reason, she was not able to become a citizen. And she used to report periodically. I think every 6 months you have to report to ICE. And she was deported, 70 years old. And she spent about 40 over years here. She brought up her whole family. She has grandkids. And then they just took her and they threw her back. Number two, one of the other, if you notice, if you travel at night, after midnight, you will see a lot of those truck drivers are American Sikhs. And they are losing their, driving licenses and their livelihoods. And the other thing, locally, we have 4 places of Sikh worship, which is called a Gurdwara, the 4 Gurdwaras. We have seen a big drop in attendance. Our main service is on Sunday. And people are afraid to come to the Gurdwara because they do not know. We did see some raids going on in New York and New Jersey where USCIS and I showed up in the Gurdwaras.
Well, people are they're fearing for their lives.
They're totally afraid. What's going to happen. And then the other thing is, as an American Sikh, I wear a turban, and the first thing they do with you is they remove your turban, which is part of our articles of faith. And you kind of dehumanized, humiliated. You're being paraded on television without your turban, which is it's like a dishonorable act. And then they put you in, and you can't you can't have your articles of faith on you. You can't do your daily prayers when they detain you. So it is quite a unsettling situation.
Yeah. So, in understanding that's what's happening, how are you combating it, or how can we combat it?
Well, number one, when I go to my Gurdwara or members of my community call me, I tell them, that there's a brochure that knowing your rights, what you can do and what you should do. Number one, I always tell them not to be combative. Number two, always give details of your immigration attorney. Tell them, call my attorney. I do not know the outcome of my case. I do not know my situation, so please call my attorney to have a discussion.
But hasn't there been cases where even though, we know that these people belong here, they're still being deported against their own will?
They are, and I kind of specialize in a very specific area where if let's say you, as a U.S. citizen, have been here, but your spouse is not a U.S. citizen and she has been here forever, and there's a path for her to become a U.S. citizen, and you file a waiver, and that's what I do. And now it is becoming, if you have a removal order, you have another waiver to get rid of the removal order. Now they're making that very difficult to get rid of that removal order. But you have been here, you have spent your time, you have family, you have bought a house. So that is becoming a bit very tough.
And even with all of the home ownership, having the paper and documents that say that you belong here, people are still being taken.
Yes, and if you remember, I believe it was I think an address by our president in December, and before that was, I think he campaigned that we are taking immigrants are taking jobs away from local people, and then and in December he said we are causing the housing crisis. So that's the reason we don't have affordable housing. But I think the affordable housing has nothing to do with immigration, because we're not building enough housing. That's number one. Number two, if you're going to buy a house, you basically take two mortgages. One, you have a confirmed rate and a firm date, maybe like 30 years. And then you have the second one where you have to pay your property tax. And I think that's why a lot of people are not buying or are unable to buy a property. And I think a lot of young people, if you look at the age, now the age group is, if you are above 40, those are the people who are buying houses. Young people can't afford to pay two mortgages on the same property.
Oh. So, who can define when someone can or cannot be deported? Is our entities like ICE the only people who can do this? Is it a federal level thing, or? So
let's say if they pick you up, so we can file in the federal court, to have like a stay order or to get you out after you're detained. And of course now they're making a lot of policy changes. They're always making it difficult.
So there is the policy change. So that's on the federal side of things.
Yeah.
But the people who are walking down the street, the ICE agents are federal agents that are coming to get people.
Right. Law enforcement officers.
And these are the only people that can do that.
Right.
What role do local police officers play in this?
I think what they have is, I do not know whether my city has signed the 287 agreement where they team up with ICE. I do notice that in my city there is some opposition against that, signing such an agreement. People are against it. So I do not know how many. I think like Cleveland Heights is one of the cities that's opposed. I do not know about city of Cleveland.
So I guess just from an example standpoint, if I am a Cleveland resident, I belong here, but I get a knock on the door and I look out and I see it's ICE. If I call the police, can they help me?
I think the local police is not going to respond, and the safest thing will be not to open the door. Okay, not open the door, because they don't have a judicial warrant. What they have is an administrative warrant to pick you up, to drag you out of your house. And most of the times they come looking not for you, for someone else, but you happen to be at the wrong time in the wrong place. And they say, hey, what's your status? And you open the door, and they're just going to drag you along, you know what I mean? And I think because of that, a lot of American citizens have been detained.
Do they have the right to enter your home?
No, if you don't open the door. Yeah.
That's so obviously advice would be, do not open your door.
Do not open your door. That's number one. I mean, you notice they're just pulling out people from vehicles, but I've not seen them pulling out people from your home.
And your first call should not be to the police, it should be to your lawyer.
To your lawyer. To your lawyer. Yeah.
Understand. Wow.
So, and it's quite I would say it's quite traumatizing, because you don't even know why you are being picked up. And most of the clients that I know that are being picked up is because the local police will stop you for some traffic violation. So the first thing is, make sure that you have a driver's license. Number two, make sure that you follow all the rules. If there's a stop sign, please, they call it like a Terry stop. They find a pretext to stop you. And the local police is the one that will connect with ICE and say, hey, we have this guy and he doesn't show up in our system. And that's when ICE will come in. And they will hold you until ICE shows up.
And with that understanding, would you still instruct people to go along with the rules? So if they were to be stopped on the street by ICE, the instruction is to follow directions.
Number one, don't confront them. Number two,
Well, if they're confronting you.
Yeah, I know, but you don't confront them. You have to follow instructions. Don't argue with them. They're not going to listen to you.
And go peacefully if they are.
Go peacefully, because you do not know what's going to happen. Yeah.
You know what? We've heard instances where people are denying people the right to call attorneys or call home, or they're just instantly trying to take them and deport them.
I think sometimes it becomes very difficult to trace your clients. Normally, it is like some family member will contact us because like you didn't return home, and they showed up in your place of work, or you're driving, and suddenly you're missing. So that becomes and it becomes very difficult to trace because you don't show up immediately in the system.
Okay. And then once you're taken into the system, the process will be reaching out to your attorney. How long does that process usually take for a person can be returned to their family or returned to their homes?
Sometimes, realistically now, never. And so you have to go to federal court and apply for or file. The first thing you need to do is file a stay of an order for the stay.
So you file the order with the state, and then the next part of that process.
And they will review your case, Or you wait for 90 days and your case comes up for review, and God willing, you're still in America, then there'll be a review.
Wow. And during this time, you're detained.
Sorry?
And during this time, you're just detained.
Yeah, you're just, you do not know what has happened to you, and you do not know what's happening outside with your family. Yeah.
How would a person, so in the event of a person is able to make it back home, how could a person pursue justice after making it back home, knowing that they were wrongfully treated?
So that's where I come in and see why were they detained. So do you have a criminal offense? I think the other area is drug offenses. I think a lot of people do not understand that under the immigration law, marijuana is still a detainable offense. It's still an unpardonable offense. But I think a lot of states, like you can go and buy it from Michigan. And I think a lot of people do not understand that. That's why they're opening up the old cases because they can't find new cases. And I think that's why you see a lot of people who have been here for 30, 40 years. They may have had, I think recently, a couple of months ago, there was a case of a Korean veteran. And he fought for us, and he had he had PTSD. So he took the drugs. He served some punishment, and so they got hold of him, and he decided to do self-report. Then and he had been here I think almost 40 years.
So to be perfectly clear, drugs wipe out your status of being a citizen if you are an immigrant.
Yeah,
even marijuana. So even if it's legal in a state like Ohio.
Okay, so my best advice is if you have or you're picked up for a criminal offense, the first thing you need to do is get a local criminal lawyer. That's number one. Number two, you have to get your local criminal lawyer to communicate with your immigration lawyer, because criminal lawyers will not know the danger of your conviction or the plea you're going to take. So it would be better to get him to communicate with your immigration lawyer.
So I guess what I want to understand too. So let's say a young person is an immigrant, but it is a U.S. born citizen, happens to legally purchase and smoke marijuana here in Ohio. They can lose their immigration status for
if you're a U.S. citizen. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just making sure.
Right.
So your citizenship could not be put in jeopardy by smoking marijuana.
So far, no.
Okay.
So far, no. I think they're reviewing, your Naturalization Act. But if you have a green card, and then you're going to run into, and I think a lot of these cases are being played up in the media, but if you go back and you see they have some conviction and the criminal lawyer didn't communicate with the immigration attorney, and then everybody live happily ever after, but now they get caught up with the system.
So you walk a tightrope.
Yeah, basically, because I think, so my advice would be that if you have a criminal conviction, or number one, if you're facing some traffic offense, even a traffic offense, because if you're caught with DWI, you may you may run into a lot. So always get your criminal lawyer to contact your immigration lawyer.
So I have two questions.
Sure.
I always think it's interesting to ask for those of us who are not immigrants. So, and I use that term loosely, right? Because none of us were originals in America, right? It is either you came over later or you're brought here against your will. So to the black person who's here in the United States, at some point down your family line, your family was brought over here in bondage. So, I mean, we were not the natural inhabitants of the United States of America. However, it is just as much our country as anybody else's, so we're here and we belong here.
I think if you go back a few thousand years ago, and my understanding is, remember when all the continents were closed, the first people who came over were Asians. And then you have from there you came out the Native Americans. Like a lot of the words we have, like even Ohio, in my language, they say Ohio. And then we are in a Cuyahoga County, we call it Kya Hoga, means what will happen. And that's what we're looking at it now, like what's going to happen tomorrow. So you see there's a lot of similarities in our languages. I think no one has sat down and kind of like identified the links.
So, I mean, my thought is that you're here, though. You're right here and you belong here. My thought is, how can we help those others who are being mistreated and wrongfully taken? How can we serve as advocates?
I think there are a lot of people going out there. I think since that one particular USC lady was shot dead, I think there are a lot of protests going on, demonstrations. I think we basically can apply social pressure and then approach your state representatives, your federal representatives, start calling them up and ask them, what is happening. And first of all, we never have had a total reform like 1965. And I do not know whether you know what is the history, why a change took place in 1965. The biggest amendment was because there was a cataclysmic event in 1957. I do not know how old are you. I was not even born yet.
I wasn't either.
Okay, so good. So what happened in 1957 is that the Russians, they put a satellite in space, Sputnik, and they started the space age. And I think we were taken by surprise. So that's 1957. And we started thinking about it. And then in 1961, they put a man in space, Yuri Gagarin. And that's when we amended the Immigration and Nationality Act and brought in thousands of engineers, researchers, scientists, mathematicians, physicists from India, China, and Russia. And 1965 is so important because that's when before 1965, we were predominantly white. And we had the minority black population. After 1965, we have become multiracial, multilingual, multicultural, multi-religious. If we had not had that change, can you imagine our first lady will not be here? Mm-hmm. And I think there's been some talk last year about birthright citizenship, and she would not be, her son would be stripped of his citizenship. And if you look at it before her, we had our vice president. Her parentage were, the father from Jamaica, and mother from India. And then if you look at our second lady too, her parentage is again from India. So I think immigration has done a lot of good to us. We will not have the Silicon Valley. If you look at it, we have an organization called the Indus Entrepreneurs. So these are people who came from South Asia and they came here for education. And they decided to stay. I do not know whether you know who is the father of fiber optics. It's actually an American Sikh, Narinder Singh Kapani. And we don't talk about all these things in, in the schools. And after that act, we put a man, after the Immigration Act was amended in 1965, we put our man on moon, 1969.
So, America, was a melting pot.
Sorry?
America is a melting pot.
Now they call it a tossed salad. Or they call it mosaic. Okay, we'll be like, downgrading it. Now, so we are Mosaic,
In which everybody is a contributing factor.
When I used to, I've taught at all the 3 colleges, including Cuyahoga County College and Kent State, and I used to teach about communication. So basically, there are 3 racial groups out there. So you have the Caucasites, Negoroids, and Mongolites. But the good news is, over the last 10 years, we all are hybrid. We have a mix. And so we can't go out and say, hey, you know what, I'm pure Caucasite, or I'm pure Negoroid, or I'm pure... We all have, if you go back, we sit down, we trace, that we are all like hybrid. So I do not know... we all belong here, I think, and we have contributed. We have I've been in Ohio. I've been like for 25 years, and when I first came here, we had no Indian food. Now I notice like Indian food has become like part of the diet. People.
We all are consumers.
We all love it, and this is the best season to have a curry. When it's so cold out there, so we were missing all these things.
There's value in it. I've said this 100 times. There's value in the diversity, right? I mean, there is
absolutely, and
there is so much beauty in the integration of having so many people live in our country and what they bring to this country.
And you told me originally you were from Akron?
Cleveland.
Okay, Cleveland. But you did something in Akron.
I worked.
You worked in Akron. So if you go to North Hill, I think it was North Hill neighborhood. 25 years ago, that place looked like some sort of like a tsunami had hit it. And then you had refugees coming in from Nepal, from Bhutan, Somalia.
North side of Akron.
North side of Akron, and the Karen Christians they were Christians from Myanmar. And you go back today, you will not be able to recognize it. The number of businesses they've opened up. And they employ locally born citizens. And now if you take them out, and I do a lot of traveling. I was in LA. And if you look at all those neighborhoods, the ethnic neighborhoods, if you take them out, I think it's going to affect. And I remembered when I was in LA and we did some touring and all that. Now, tourism has gone down by 10%. I do not know whether you realize that.
I do.
And just last week, one major hotel in Cleveland downtown closed because tourists are not coming in. Mm. And today I was reading about Reserve Square. If you know anything about Reserve Square, so that's a place where a lot of overseas students used to live, especially from South Asia, India particularly, and a lot of residents who come into and work in our hospitals. Now they can't come in on H-1B. That's a big issue now, the H-1B, they're stopping them. And what has happened with CSU? They have to cut back their programs. And that is affecting the economy. And there's 17%, I think almost 20% people have stopped coming to it. 20% of Europeans have stopped coming in. 30% Canadians have stopped coming in. And then when you attend conferences, about 30-40% of the people can't come in or they don't want to come in. And this is that is about, at this moment, the estimated cost is $21 billion. Our tourism industry has been affected.
So my next question will be for you. So where do we go from here?
I think you have to, in America, you have to get out there and vote for the right people. People who are familiar with immigration and the good effects of immigration, go out and vote for them. Call up your representatives and tell them why we need them. And even downtown Cleveland, we are familiar with downtown Cleveland 25 years ago. That is, if you look at Cleveland, it has the second oldest Chinatown. I do not know whether you know the second oldest Chinatown. And then when they cracked down on it because there were, and this is what do you call that? Against immigrants, not against, it's like a roller coaster ride.
Discriminated.
It's like a roller coaster ride. There'll be good times, there'll be bad times. And now you go down and look at the businesses there that are booming, and people don't sit down. I was sat down when I had a community newspaper, and you cannot just say that, it's only Asian businesses. And Asian businesses are, I think, the biggest minority-owned businesses in Ohio, and they employ about 50,000 Americans. Number two is Hispanic businesses. And you look at the number, I think Hispanic food has become like mainstream. I cannot live without Hispanic food. I have to eat it at least once or twice a week. So, I mean, look at how it is enriching our, what do you call that? Our culture, our food.
So American culture is made up of so many different.
And the other thing I want to add, if you look at our farming, most of the big farms, if you go down to Oregon, California, who you think own these farms? Most of them are American Sikhs, and they employ people, and they're not. And local Americans don't want to. It's a back-breaking job. I remember, like in 2021, I took a trip to Las Vegas, but I wanted to go into Arizona, and on the way I saw these pistachio farms, and that's all that can grow there in that heat and the dryness there. And who were the workers? Who are the workers in nurseries? And they're not competing for jobs with them. I mean, Americans will not want to do this job, right? Even you go into any hotel, and I travel from east to west and north and south. Even I went down to Hawaii 2024. Who's gonna pick up your bed and make up your bed? It's not local people who are going to do that job. They want good jobs. To me, I look at it like immigration is a favorite punching bag for politicians because they can't go out there and create jobs, high income jobs. So very easy to deflect. Hey, you know what? These guys are taking our jobs. And my clients, I look at them, none of them are competing locally. I mean, who's going to go into fisheries? Who's going to go into marine industry?
Yeah.
Construction. I mean, I remember there was one scene, I was walking around LA and I saw there were two white people, one white man, white woman, and one black man, and they were lying down there and they were like looking upwards at the high-rise building, and then that's why I looked up. Guess who was on the gondola?
Oh.
There were Hispanic people cleaning in that, the windy, who's going to take the risk to clean the high-rise buildings? And these people who were looking at them, then I realized they were passed out because of OD. And people don't realize that,
People who take the jobs that nobody wants. That's allegedly taking the jobs away from everybody.
Yeah, meat processing plants. I have a lot of clients who work in meat processing plants. Who's going to do that work? You know what I mean?
Right.
Who's going to work as a chambermaid? And the other thing, in Ohio specifically, there is like a aging tsunami coming. 2.2 million people in Ohio are 65 years and above. Who are going to be the caregivers?
So I guess my question for you is, where do we tell people to go from here?
It depends who you're going to tell that to. Okay, if you're a rational being, you can see what we need and what we need to do.
And the second part to that would be, how does a person become an advocate for immigration?
Number one, start reading about it. Mm-hmm. Okay, read about why we had this Immigration and Nationality Act major change in 1965, and even if you go back when we had that war going on, the war on terror in Iraq and Afghanistan, 1/3 we couldn't get local soldiers, and 1/3 of the people were immigrants. Okay, we had set up recruiting offices in El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Punjab, India. So we can't even get people to defend our interests.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So as we get ready to wrap up our podcast, what is the last thing you have to say to a listener who's checking in today and want to know about what's happening in the conditions of the United States as it pertains to immigration?
Well, number one is start researching about immigration law. Number three, how it is enriching our communities. Number four, how we are gaining from it. And let me give you one example. So locally, it became a burning issue. H1B, we bring in a lot of people with advanced degrees in science, technology, engineering. It became a burning issue in 2003, 2004, because the Cleveland School District decided to bring 100 teachers from India. Mm. And local teachers unions were up in arms. And I, by chance, met a few of them who were staying in Mayfield Heights and Gates Mills Place. That's where I used to live at that time. And I got to know these people. Now, many of them had PhDs. Many of them had several masters. In fact, there's one person who still stays, he's my neighbor, and he was teaching in Cleveland School District, and he said they had no science teacher. Can you believe that? For several years, they had no science teacher. And their passing rate was 19%.
Wow.
And within 2 years, he was able to bring it up to 49%. And if today I was looking at it, they just cracked down, that there is like a groundswell, H-1B people are coming here, taking our jobs. But there's a shortage of teachers in Texas, which is a Republican state, California, North Carolina. No one is talking about rural hospitals. They are all H-1B, inner cities, H-1B physicians who come here, researchers. And before I was rushing for somebody sent me an email. They're trying to change, if you come here as a student, and they're trying to change OPT. But these OPT students are the ones who are our researchers in our laboratories. I think there's some sort of like a disconnect. And I think we all should sit down and have some serious discussion about these different areas. It's like a mosaic, putting everything together, like a jigsaw puzzle. And people don't see that, people, no one is taking your jobs. There are no jobs. I was in Dublin, and one of the first things that hit me, Ireland, that's in Ireland, they have reinvented their economy by bringing people from China, from India. In fact, Dublin has positioned itself as an IT center. So what's the first thing that hits you? A lot of Indians, IT students coming in. So Indians, I think India has created this global workforce. And I think that's what we should work for towards. And no policymaker is working towards that to create a global workforce. If you look at our statistics that came out, I think 2 months ago, half of our adults, their reading capability is 6th grade. Our high school students can't read beyond 6th grade and 7th grade. And so how are we going to create a global workforce? I think that's what we should be like, retooling, repurposing our schools. But in the meanwhile, we need these people. If not, we lose that advantage in IT, in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And you notice after 1969, and as immigration became tighter, we have not put a man on Mars yet. Have you realized that? Whereas China has gone on and set up an international space center. Today I was looking at it, they're going to set up like an aircraft carrier in a space where they can put their planes there. So they are like, and I think one of the problems is our political structure, because our president gets in here, he has a term limit, he has 8 years, and that's all he gets elected the first time, and second term, his priority is to get re-elected. But he does not sit down and look at, same thing.
Pay attention to the issues.
Sorry?
They don't pay attention to the issues.
They don't.
They only worry about re-election.
They don't. All they do is same thing with our governor. He has 2 terms, and so he gets in elected first time. I think he's in a state of shock, and then as he starts working on getting re-election, and that's it. I'm done. They don't sit down and they plan like all the other places. Countries are planning 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, which direction. And if you look at it, we have lost like 5 million jobs, manufacturing jobs, when China joined World Trade Organization. And I basically came here to reinvent the economy of Mahoning Valley. I don't know are you familiar with Mahoning Valley? That is Trumbull County, Mahoning County, and Columbiana. After the steel industry collapsed, coal mining collapsed, car industry collapsed, they have nothing. Until today, 25 years later, all they have is 2 prisons where they house these undocumented immigrants. And it makes no sense, It makes no sense. Like, let's say if you estimate there are 10 million undocumented immigrants, if you just charge them $5,000 each to put them on a path to get some sort of like a temporary green card, we can raise $50 billion. And that $50 billion can go in providing healthcare for us, for the Americans. So, there are ways to address these situations. I think we just have to sit down and start focusing what are the real issues.
And it also has something to do with us sitting down across from the table and brainstorming and trying to work it out together.
Exactly, and we don't do that. We have I don't know whether the two-party system is working for us. They're both through extreme, one extreme and the other extreme, and you can never bring them together.
Well, to wrap us up, I'm always proud to say that the Cleveland branch NAACP is always willing to collaborate and is always looking to build new relationships with new communities.
Right.
I want to thank you for taking some time out your busy day to come and speak with us today. And we hope to have you on again in the future for more conversations.
Sure.
What I want to say to those tuning in today, if you've caught a part of our conversation and understand what's going on in our community, understand that we are in some serious times. If ICE knocks on your door, don't open your door. If you are approached out in the street by ICE, do not fight. We want you to maintain your life, and then you need to get in contact with the immigration attorney as soon as possible. Those are just a few of the lessons that we learned today.
And I just want to add in, if you're stopped for a traffic violation, inform your criminal defense lawyer to contact your immigration lawyer, because it has an impact on your immigration case.
All right. So if I don't see you for the next time we record, do the best out there to take care of yourselves. We thank you for tuning in, and peace.